Hey man, what you want?
Seeing my home. What's up with you?
Yeah, homie. Yeah, it's good to see you back.
No homie love? No hug?
I came across a video today on YouTube by Modern Vintage Gamer, February 17th, 2021, titled Grand Theft Auto San Andreas is running on the PlayStation Vita. And I took interest in this, obviously, and I watched it. I mean, I watch all of his videos. And he basically goes over the recent release of the San Andreas port to the PS Vita. This is not a port directly from the PS2. It's actually a port of the Android version of the game. So the PS Vita is not quite powerful enough to run emulation of PS2 games. So by doing this port, the developer was able to, enhance the game enough to actually work on the PS Vita to maintain good frame rates and good textures and everything without pushing the Vita too much. It looks like it was developed by a user name or a developer named The Flow. So yeah, I'll link to the GitHub page with all that information and how to install it. To play the game, you actually and to install the game, you actually need to have a modded PS Vita. So I mean that's obviously step one. If you have a Vita and it's 2021, I mean I don't really know why you wouldn't mod it. It's very straightforward and it really unlocks the potential of the device. However, so that's step one, and then basically what you need to do is you need to follow the guide. There are a few things you need to install. I mean, there's a couple of things here that I had to install, and some settings you need to tweak. It's actually not very difficult to install, but it does take time, and you need to, you don't want to mess anything up, so you want to follow the directions thoroughly as you go through. But once it's ready to go, you basically have the game installed. You do have to have a version of the Android, an Android version of the game. I actually do have a copy of San Andreas on the Android. I also have it on, I'm pretty sure I have it on my iPhone, and also on Steam, I believe, as well. And I do own the PS2 version because I played it back in the day. But yeah, there are ways you can also dump your game from your Android. There's tools to do that. So there's lots of ways you can get your get this APK. But anyway, so let's jump into it. Basically, my point here was I wanted to look at the game itself, see how it runs, what the frame rates are like, and then just basically see if it's a good port, how the audio, and just some of the things that this homebrew developer has put into this game, and it's quite impressive. So let's jump into it right now. So basically, we just load the game up normally. There are some settings down here you can change. So there's a configuration button here, so you can go in here at the bottom and you can actually change them. Down here at the bottom you can change the settings if you actually click on this here. We're not going to actually tweak any of these yet, so I just wanted to see what was in here. Okay, so we're not going to tweak any of these yet. These look like some really nice tweaks that they've put into the game itself, but let's see how it runs without that. So you basically just launch the game once it's all installed, and yeah, let's get into it. So there are some other tweaks you can do. They're outlined on the GitHub page that will increase performance overall. So there are some texture packs that are being run on this game. So you can have they'll be rendering as you're going throughout the game. But there are a couple tweaks you can do, which is basically just modifying some text files, and that will preload some of those textures in. So it'll slow down the initial load screen here a little bit, but it should enhance performance overall. And I've loaded into the game once. I haven't really played it, but I've loaded into it, and it loads fast anyways. So I mean, I would definitely do that one way or the other. I mean, you're looking at a few seconds to get into the game. So yeah, let's jump into it. I'll cut back when it's actually loaded up. Okay, so here we are in the game. Just default. I have the frames per second up in the corner there. You can see up there. Let's see here. Yeah, so there's no overclocks on here right now. Let's have a look at it just as it runs natively. Yeah, I got hit by a car right off the bat. So it looks to be jumping up and down 20 to 30 frames per second. Now, in some games where you have big dips, or just the nature of some games, that jump is actually kind of jarring. It's actually not really, I mean, it's noticeable, but it's not really, it's not hindering the gameplay whatsoever. So I would definitely have no issues with that. Okay, so let's I want to drive so we can have the game, push the game to, you know, render these textures a little bit faster in new areas and see how much loading or freezing or frame per second drop there is there. But it's pretty good. I mean, we're not really getting below 20 at any time, even when we get into new areas. Seems to be loading in the new assets pretty quick. Let's apply a slight overclock to that. That actually is higher than the base clock anyways. So I guess the profile of the game is predetermined. This is actually the max GPU. Normally sits at 166. So it looks like both of these were set up. The GPU was already at max. The CPU was near max. So it looks like they might have already tweaked some of those things. But let's see how it looks now. I just added a little bit more of a CPU overclock. Might help load in some of those textures and assets a little bit faster. You know, there's a lot going on the screen. Yeah, it might actually be doing the trick there. It's still dipping below 30 from time to time, but it's definitely not. It's not bothersome. Okay. Let's watch this blow up and see if it hitches a bit. Okay, so let's jump back in here and check some of these configuration settings more in depth. Let's see what they actually are and if they do anything. So looks like there's some stuff about cache, touch panel dead zone. So I guess maybe the touch on the back of the Vita is actually doing something. I didn't really play with that, but there might be some kind of setting there potentially. There's some fixes. These are some texture packs, it looks like. So there's this game was released on mobile. It was also released on obviously the PS2. It says original, and it was released on the PC. I think it's on Steam. I'm pretty sure I have it on Steam. And there's different, you know, textures potentially there and some tweaks they've made to the game. So you obviously can change some of these. There is some different settings here: shading, Corona Sun, anti-aliasing. If you find that the game is slowing down quite a bit, I mean, you could always turn that off, and it'll be a little bit more janky and blurry, potentially. But I mean, that's fine. You might get better performance if that's a thing for you. Detailed textures, that might be something like an HD pack. So let's actually turn that on. And let's change this to, I don't know, let's just change it to PC and see if there's any difference here. And I'll save and launch the game, and I'll just cut back in a sec. Okay, so now we're back into it. There's definitely a color difference here. And you can see some type of, I mean, the road, you can see there's some type of almost like gravelly texture to it. The cars yeah, they actually do look different. Let's look at CJ up close. I mean, he looks roughly the same. There's something on the asphalt here, though, for sure. Let's take a look at a car and see if this affects performance at all. So the way I saved the overclocks, it does actually default. So this is something that I noticed when I loaded it up the first time, and I just played with it for a second or two. There's this weird effect here where the camera switches there by accident, and maybe that's the touch controls. Yeah, that's the touch controls. Okay, so if you are stuck in left or right camera view, which I was for a moment, I actually recorded this a second ago, and it was stuck in that, and I was like, what the heck's going on? And I went back and closed the app and went back in, and it went back to normal. But that those touch panels on the back seem to be left and right. So I guess that's for, I think it was R2 on the PS2, and you could do you could do like drive-bys, and you could hold that button there and see out the window. I don't have a pistol right now or a gun, so I can't do it. But the back left touch pad is actually looking out that way. The right one, I guess you can't look out that window. So yeah, so I had my hand on the back of it and I wasn't really paying attention, and I was like, why am I stuck basically driving like that? And it was bothering me, and I realized I had my hand on the back panel there, because I have kind of big hands, so I was over grasping the Vita. But yeah, there definitely is an effect here from the texture pack. You can see the gravel looks like it's almost, to be honest, it kind of looks almost too textured to me. I don't really like it. I actually liked how the game just looked as stock, but it's something you can play around with. It doesn't seem to be affecting frame rates. There's definitely a slight coloration difference with that, with it being on the PC version versus the PS2. The PS2 had more of an orangish tone to it. This is more of just like just neutral colors, but yeah. So we're getting a few dips down there around 18 when I'm really flying, but those are just the numbers on the screen. To be honest, the actual playability of this is not affected in any way. This is running quite excellently. I'm actually very impressed with this. So yeah, there's a look at the game. If you have a PS Vita, I highly recommend you get your hands on this. I mean, you've probably played San Andreas in the past, and you probably know that it's one of the best games ever made. Hope I'm gonna die. Yeah, there's really no reason to not play it if you have the PS Vita now. Yeah, so there you go. Thanks for watching.